We're back. New School Sensei podcast, Parkside Studio. Hey, I'm your host, Lance Douglas. Ken Douglas in the house. Literally, we're in his house, so you guys can see what it looks like. How's the wall looking, guys?
It's clean.
Clean, yeah, it's a good rental. Not bad. We're talking about burnout, especially with our martial arts students. Ken, set the scene. So, what are you seeing on the ground floor? How are we looking?
I think we're looking pretty good. I guess the ways that we've combated burnout at Twins is by having a black belt class. So I guess historically, once the kids, they push really hard to get their black belt and then they quit. So we sort of recognize that and then we added in our black belt class. So I think at Twins, it's always an issue, but it's not as big of an issue as it was previously.
As a parent, you start your child in something. It could be footy, could be soccer, gymnastics, whatever. And you want them to stick at it. So I'm lucky, I'm on the front desk and I talk to a lot of parents and they never want their child to quit. Sometimes if the child really doesn't like the sport, then that's fair enough. But sometimes the children, they don't want to come to karate, but as soon as they're there, they love it.
Yeah, you see that a lot.
So talk to that, Ken. What are you seeing from that front?
I guess, it is fairly common, I guess, to have a lot of distractions at home, especially if they had a big day on the tools, big day at school. So if they've run around a lot of tests, a lot of studying, they get home, they settle in, have a big feed, they have a bit of a food coma, watching a lot of TV. I can understand it. You probably don't want to get on the mats and sweat it out, yeah? Every time you get on the mats after the class, everyone feels amazing. You got that high. You're just feeling good, yeah? So I think as a parent, you probably got to think about just say your kid's training twice a week, Tuesday, Thursday, really think about what they're doing after school to make sure they're 100% ready to turn up to the class so they're motivated. Yeah, so I guess, Lance, what sort of tips would you give to a parent? They've got their kids training twice a week, Tuesday, Thursday. What sort of routine would you advise them to have so they're ready for class?
The key thing you said was routine. So if they're in the routine, if you're constantly changing days, it's hard though. I understand some parents don't have a flexible schedule, so they got to do what they got to do at work. So,
yeah, true.
And that's why we have 7 days a week training, so you can fit in the training whenever you need to.
That's
we
it.
do 2 a night as well, 2 class 1 night. But if you can stick to the schedule so the kids know what's coming, if you've held firm Tuesday, Thursday, we're training karate, and you've done it for a year, then more times than not, they're going to progress and they're going to keep doing that for the next year as well. So having a good routine. The other thing is, pick a time where your child will be switched on. So maybe if your child needs an early night's sleep, you probably wouldn't be choosing a late class. You go for more of an earlier class. Or maybe that your child needs an hour, 2 hours after school to unwind, maybe have some fun. So then choose a class that's on a bit later. And a lot of parents will tell me that their child is flat out during the week. They can't do it. Might have to train Saturday, Sunday.
Definitely.
We've had the Sunday classes for the last year and a half, and I have to say Sunday might be one of our busiest days.
Yeah, Saturday was always our busiest day. Sunday is getting up there. Fridays has actually been...
Fridays.
Historically, there wasn't much on Fridays, but now it could be because the coaches are absolutely guns. That's like a little sleeping giant Friday.
Fridays, yeah, getting busy. I'd say because normally Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday was quite busy. You'd probably say now... Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
The back end of the week.
Back end.
Do you think potentially, if parents are working from home or they're just getting busier at work, Mondays is always a lot of meetings?
Yep.
You're doing a lot of work, you're doing heaps of work, and then I guess Friday's more relaxed. I guess it depends. If you've got like deadlines, you've got stuff you got to get in. But I guess as a parent, it might be easier to take your kid on that Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yep.
Yeah, I think for me, what I've seen some parents where they pick the kids up and they don't actually go home. They do something else and then they come straight to the mats. So I think for some kids that works because if you go home, they could be straight on the screens. Whereas if you pick them up, you might go to the beach, you might go to the playground, and they just come to the mats early, yeah? Which is fine as long as it's not too early, yeah, Lance?
With the screens, I've seen it work with a lot of parents using the screens after training.
Okay.
Because if the child finishes school and then jumps on a screen and plays their favourite video game, good luck taking them off that and then getting to karate.
It's going to be very tough.
So using it as a reward after, what they need to get done. The other thing would be, so a lot of parents, they've told me this works quite well. So a lot of kids, they don't want to play sport after school, which is fair enough. But we all know kids need to be fit. They need to get exercise. So they have to do something. And a lot of kids aren't riding their bikes around or playing a game of footy with their mates after school. It's just not happening. So we need the formal sports. A lot of times they won't want to come in, but then they love the class and they're all smiles. So the parents will say they'll only let their child quit if they say they don't enjoy the class after the class has happened.
That's a good one.
There's no quitting on the way to the sport. Okay? You can quit after the sport.
Respect, 100%.
So that's that. I'm probably going to use that for my boy as well.
Yeah, that's a good one, definitely. So if we talk about burnout, what does burnout look like, Lance? Just say you got a 10-year-old kid. They've been doing martial arts since they were 5 years old. Maybe they're a brown belt.
Yep.
And they just had enough.
Yeah, and you kind of will see it in their expression. So they'll start, early, 5 years old, and you can see they run into the dojo. They're loving it. They're chatty. They're absolutely loving the sport. And then, once you get a bit older, if they're coming in, normally I'll say, "Oh, g'day, John. How you going, mate?" If I'm not getting a smile, I'm not even getting nothing out of them. And then if you see them in the class and you can see that maybe there's a bit of yawning, they're not enjoying it, then you probably know they're on the way out.
Yeah, that's true. If I'm thinking about in twins, once the students who get brown belt, they normally go on to get that black belt. Because you think about it, you're starting at pre-martial arts, so your kinder, prep, grade 1. You're joining with a lot of friends usually. You got your best mate with you, this and that. Karate's a hard sport, like we're not going to lie, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. So a lot of the friends drop off. It's just not for them. So they've stuck at it. And then they get to juniors. And then usually we see a lot of quits once they go from, they're in juniors for a few years and they move to the intermediate level. So they go from that they start as a white belt in juniors and they get their provisional blue belt in juniors. And then the next belt, the blue belt, go into intermediate. We see them quit at blue belt. Do you have any reasons for that, Lance, that you've seen?
It could be once you move up to that blue belt, that intermediate class, it will be a step up in kind of intensity and complexity. So we do expect the students to train a little bit harder, and just all the movements we're doing, the self-defense, everything's getting a little bit more complex, which is what you'd expect in a martial art. And also a lot of times maybe they can't commit, because we do want, you don't have to, but we do want the students to train twice a week once we're in intermediates. And if they're on once a week, the progression is just not as quick. So that could definitely be a factor as well.
Yeah, definitely. And then once they get their brown belt, we do see a few quits there because that's another level they need to go up. Because if they were training once a week and they get their brown belt, then pretty much you can't grade with us if you're still on once a week. You have to go to twice a week. So we do see some people drop off from there. But pretty much once people get to brown belt, they generally do go on to black belt with us. We have had a few, probably you count them on one hand, that get to our first Q red stripe, which is the final belt before black. They quit, but you can count them on one hand. So I wanted to ask you, Lance, just say if you've got some friends that run their own clubs, mm-hmm. and they're seeing their students getting burnt out and they're quitting, are there any tips that you would give them?
What we have at Twins, once they get to the intermediate rank, they get access to our sparring class. It's where they get to practice all their moves under supervision and with pads. Kids love sparring class. Yeah. That's our most popular class.
Yeah.
We've got that 7 days a week.
Yeah.
So sparring, they'll get a lot of kids pretty hyped up, especially now they're 9, 10, 11. They love the sparring class. We have Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So once they're 11 years old, they can get access to our kids' Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Yep.
And then we've got the adults Jiu-Jitsu as well.
Yep.
So that's another layer. We have the teens and adults class. So maybe your child's getting 12, 13, 14. They're getting a bit bored. Once they jump into that adults class, they've got bigger bodies to compete against, and there's a whole nother level of complexity and a lot more cool stuff they can do, because in the adults and teens class, the coach doesn't have to worry about classroom management. Once you get to adults and teens, you get the most martial arts, because the coach doesn't have to, pull up Zach, Jim, Jill on, behavior. So getting to that adults class, that's your premier class. And then after all that, once you get the black belt, the number one class is the black belt class.
That's my favourite class.
And you get the number one coach in Victoria, you get Ken. So you've got the best class when you're a black belt. You've got the best training partners. Everyone's the highest level. And you got the best coach. And the coach, it's your favourite class. So then we have all those different layers into it. And then another layer we have is the leadership.
I was going to say,
which is our favorite program.
the premier program.
Premier program. So that's where you can, you're passing on some of the knowledge to the younger kids. You're being a role model. You're getting exposure to running warm-ups, leading small groups, then big groups of people. And it can lead on to, instead of working at Macca's, working as an assistant coach. So we have all those layers built in to make sure our students stick with the martial arts, because we know they get the most benefit. A lot of people think they get the most benefit when they're young. I actually believe you get the most benefit when you're older.
Oos.
So you can train hard from 5 to 15, 10 years of martial arts. But if you quit, I actually believe you get the most benefit from 15 to 25. That's when you can really build into your body, be really adaptable, learn how to use all the skills you've learned as a kid. So I'd rather someone get their base of training when they're 15 to 25.
And that's a question. Another question then, I guess for the older martial artists, if they do feel that training is a bit mundane, maybe they're a grappler, jiu-jitsu, maybe they're a blue belt. It's, they've been training for 2, 3, 4 years to get the blue belt, started white belt in jiu-jitsu, and they're learning so much every single class, like so many new positions. They get the blue belt, and then I guess they hit that blue belt blues, yeah? They feel like they're still getting tapped by white belts, they're getting smashed by other blue belts, getting smashed by the purples, browns.
Worse, I reckon, because once you get to blue belt, then the way I think is you can take a little bit more pressure.
Yeah, that's it. So then, have you got any advice for those blue belts out there, or just the older martial artists, to not get burnt out and to keep going? Like if your goal is to get a black belt in any sort of martial art.
Yeah, I had the advice early, so go for consistency over intensity with your training. So if you're a fresh white belt in jiu-jitsu, you're training 6 days a week, then you get the blue belt, you're still getting bashed, you're more likely to quit. But if you're a white belt, you're training 3 days a week, that's part of your routine, you got mates, and it takes you a bit longer to get the blue, but if it actually takes you a bit longer, then I reckon you're probably more likely to stick at it.
Yeah, probably. With that question, thinking about me, when I was a blue belt, I sort of changed up the winning conditions. It's not about winning the roll or tapping someone, especially versus higher ranks here. It's just about surviving, essentially. So I would count a win if the black belt didn't tap me. Maybe if I know this person's got a really good mount, like I remember training with Lee. Remember Lee back in the day?
Yep.
He had a ferocious mount. So if I could survive that mount, I'd count that as a win. If I could get out of it, even better. We've got some recent training partners like Henry, like a very strong mount. Like if you can get out of that mount, you'd definitely call that a win.
I don't think I've got out of him much. I don't think I've actually ever escaped his mount. I've survived it a handful of times.
He's got a good clamp. I think to be in the martial arts for a long time, you can't be trying to win every roll, every contest, every exchange, every session, yeah? It's about having little wins along the way. And you got to tailor that to yourself.
And it also helps if you got a good, you got good communication with your coach.
Yeah.
So you can talk to him. You can, if you're saying, you should be able to tell your coach, I'm losing the interest here. Or
Yeah.
I feel like I'm hitting a plateau. It is, of course some coaches won't want to hear that.
Yep.
But I feel like you should be able to say this to your coach, and then your coach can give you ideas. If you're feeling you're getting a bit bored, then the coach, maybe they'll start just go through some different techniques. Maybe start, okay, you're getting a bit bored, let's start working that berimbolo.
Hey.
Let's start working leg locks.
That's it.
Maybe you predominantly just work upper body. If you start getting into the leg lock game, that can definitely keep you interested for a couple of years.
Definitely. When would be a time that you experience a bit of burnout, and then how did you overcome that, Lance?
Actually, I always feel a bit of burnout close to a competition.
Okay, yep.
Yeah, at the moment, I'm doing Pan Packs. That's actually on tomorrow. When you're training just to win for 1 or 2 months, kind of gets a bit stale. But the good thing is, once the competition's done, then you can go back and just get back to
have
learning,
fun,
try some new stuff.
Yeah.
So for me, probably always close towards competition.
Yep. Yeah, that's probably similar to me, to be honest. Probably say in terms of karate and being burnt out, it's tricky because at Twins we have such a diverse syllabus. We got the traditional side, a lot of different katas, which are really cool, which I still enjoy. And then we got all of our self-defense, our grappling, our wrestling. And then just teaching kids, especially the way we teach kids, we'll always trying new things, trying to get better. It's not like we're teaching the same syllabus for 10 years straight. That's the same lesson plan for 10 years straight. I can see that's how some coaches will get burnt out. So I guess if you've got any advice for coaches that are getting burnt out teaching?
Yeah, start experimenting in your classes. The cool thing is if you're coaching, 5 days a week, your Monday class you can experiment, and then by the time it hits a Friday, you've got it down pat. So every week I try and tinker with something. Whether we're going to try a different drill for sparring, or let's try nunchucks and give a different cue to get whatever we want to get. Just playing around with your coaching a little bit. Don't have to always the same thing.
With your syllabus, you've got your core fundamental techniques, but I think it's important for a coach to be trying to teach different things, to be expanding their knowledge in the martial arts. I know for us, for this term, we're going back to our roots. We're going back to a lot of footwork. So it's sort of like a lot of stuff we used to do, just trying to remember the old drills, but then looking up some new drills to really get the kids when they're sparring to be light on their feet. Also with the self-defense portion for the higher ranks, we're doing some brand new clinch positions. Do you want to talk about them? Because it's been exciting to try them out, to play with them, and also to learn from you a couple little tips you gave me last night.
Yeah, with our self-defense for the juniors and adults, we have each term we cycle it. So first term we did, from memory, it was ground self-defense. Second term, we moved on to more clinching self-defense. The third term, we had the integration of standing and the ground. If someone is standing, how to put them on the ground, or if you're almost standing up, how to return them back onto the ground.
Yep.
And now this term, it's all about control.
Yep. Standing control.
Standing control. And this is a new one. I got this from one of our awesome coaches, Aaron Marshall. When you're defending, if you're in high school, you don't always want to be forced to put them on the ground.
Yep.
Because if you've got a couple of mates, a couple of cousins, they get kicked in the back of the head. So a lot of times you need to control the person standing. So with our standing control, we use a lot of aspects of wrestling, in particular Greco-Roman wrestling. So tying someone up so it's hard for them to punch us, hard for them to headbutt us, hard for them to bite us.
That's it. It's just things evolve. Like I remember back in the day, self-defense was you have to finish this guy pretty much, yeah. Like if you finish by attacking that groin or something like that, yeah.
Yep.
But now it's like sometimes you don't want to hurt them that bad, so you want to pin them. And a lot of it was pinning them on the ground. Mm-hmm. Now it's changing now. Like you want to pin them against the wall, or you want to pin them standing. Yeah.
That's it. It's good for the kids to have a rotating curriculum, because each term we're focusing on something new, something different.
Yep.
Obviously, we're going to come back to it. So we've got that A, B, C, D. So each term, so each year, they'll come back to things. But if your curriculum is set up so that there's new things the kids do, then it's hard for them to get bored, helps them stay motivated and stay in the martial
It's hard for
arts.
the coach to get bored too. Things are changing too.
If the coach is burnt out, then it's very hard to keep the kids motivated and engaged.
Yes, the coach has to be training too, yeah. So if we do want to wrap this podcast up, Lance, there's a parent, the kid's getting burnt out, 3 quick tips you would give them.
Number one, talk to the coach. Maybe the coach has to adjust things in the class. The second thing is, if your martial arts school has different options, it could be doing a sparring class,
Yes.
doing leadership team. It could
Jiu-jitsu
be
class.
Jiu-jitsu as well. If they're a teenager, moving up to the teenager and adult class.
Just changing programs, yeah.
It could be just changing classes.
Just jumped from dragons to juniors potentially, even though it's rare, but sometimes it needs to be done, yeah? They're getting tired of dragons. They want to move up to juniors.
Can also be switching coaches as well.
Yeah.
Like you got a different day. Maybe they're getting a bit bored on Monday. Maybe try the Tuesday coach. Try the Wednesday coach.
We all sort of come from the same tree, but we're all different, all of us coaches, yeah?
Yep. And then probably the last bit of advice is, really try and prep your child so that they're not getting distracted before the session.
Yeah.
So if you know that, you pulling them off the technology is a battle, just don't have the technology there.
Especially if they're trying to watch a 2-hour movie and you cut them halfway short. You'd probably battle me off the TV too. I'm trying to finish off this, this movie.
100%. I'm reading Game of Thrones and it's getting good, so it's a battle getting me off that book.
100%. Which one are you up to?
What is it? The Feast of Crows.
Which one's that?
The second last one.
Oi.
And the next one's the Dance of Dragons.
But you've watched them all, haven't you?
I've watched them, but they are different. Let's wrap it so we don't talk too much Game of Thrones. So, awesome podcast. Hopefully everyone enjoyed that. If you did, make sure you like our channel on YouTube, see us on Instagram, and then on Spotify. If you could follow us, everything, it all helps. We'll see you on the next one. Oos.